Hi friends, welcome to a very special video. I don't have many people left on this planet that I would consider true personal heroes. Steve Irwin passed away in 2006, Anthony Bourdain passed in 2018, and Jane Goodall left us just this past October. Ooh. So as many of you might already know, I take every opportunity possible to talk about David Attenborough. He is an environmentalist, wildlife conservation extraordinaire, and international treasure. Even if you think that you don't know who David Attenborough is, trust me, you know his voice.
Ants are among the most numerous, widespread, and frequently exploited members of the undergrowth. Plants use a variety of different techniques to spread their seeds as far as possible from themselves.
He has unbridled joy for all creatures big and small, and has been working tirelessly for the past 8 decades to save our incredible planet and all of its inhabitants, and to spread awareness and afford people the opportunity to see for themselves the beauty and wonder of the world and its wild spaces. If you're watching this video the weekend I uploaded, David Attenborough turned 100 years old this past Friday, May 8th. No one on Earth is more deserving to reach that milestone. And so to celebrate him and all that he's accomplished, I will be spending the week reading one of his books and watching his nature documentaries. Also, it just so happens that this year his birthday falls during the week of the annual gala that Steve Irwin's family hosts. My mom and I used to go every year when it was held in LA. We haven't been since 2023 because it was moved to Las Vegas, but this year we decided to say f it. So I'm leaving tomorrow morning to spend the weekend in Vegas with my mother to support the Irwin family. So this is an all-around nature and wildlife conservation week for me, just how I like it. I know that some people probably don't care about reading nonfiction, but I'm here to show you that environmental and wildlife nonfiction is cool, and educating yourself on the planet we live on is cool, and caring about our natural world is cool, and you should do more of it. Additionally, I barely make any money from YouTube, but whatever I make from this video, I will be taking and then doubling out of pocket and donating it to World Land Trust, a foundation that works to save wild land and species, and whom David Attenborough himself has been championing for over 30 years. I'm going to leave the link in the description box in case anyone decides they want to donate personally. I'm assuming this video will get less views than I usually do because not everyone is interested in nonfiction. So if you want to leave this specific video on mute on a loop as you go about your day, it will help us to be able to donate more money to this cause. So I'm gonna go finish packing. I will see you on the airplane tomorrow, where I'm gonna start reading A Life on Our Planet by none other than the man himself, the myth, the legend, David Attenborough.
Then and only then will I know that I have achieved my ultimate goal, to be able to stand aside and let them run up my mission.
Our conservation work and what we do on the front line of environmental preservation is really what makes us tick. That is the root cause behind absolutely everything that we do.
Okay, so we're leaving. None of our garbage is in the background right now. My mom and I are going to the aquarium right now at Mandalay Bay. My mom's never been there before, so I get to show her around. We're going to be looking for the weedy sea dragon specifically because that's David Attenborough's favorite animal on the planet, apparently. Oh no, I would say hi to my mom, but our bed, it's a girl, this is a girl room. This is a girl hotel room. There's shit all over the bed. So we're going to the aquarium. We had a really nice time. Oh, here we go. Here's mom. We had a really nice time at the gala last night. I fly home tomorrow, but for now, aquarium time. Hi, I'm back home. So I read about 100 pages while I was in Vegas of A Life on Our Planet, which is somewhere between a third and a half of the book. A lot of the back part is just glossary. I want to show you, I got this postcard while I was in Scotland. So I was using this as my bookmark. It's David Attenborough with a few animals on him and a globe, and it says, "I wish the world was twice as big and half of it was still unexplored," which is a big theme that we experience in this book. So that was my bookmark, and then while I was in Vegas at the aquarium, I got this. Actually, my mom and I got matching ones. The sharks move. So that's my new bookmark. So A Life on Our Planet is everything I expected it would be so far. It's essentially the story. Well, I'm gonna read, I don't even think I read the synopsis to you earlier. I'm gonna let him tell you in his own words. The back of the book says, "I am 96. I've had an extraordinary life. It's only now that I appreciate how extraordinary. As a young man, I felt I was out there in the wild experiencing the untouched natural world, but it was an illusion. The tragedy of our time has been happening all around us, barely noticeable from day to day. The loss of our planet's wild places, its biodiversity. I have seen this decline. A Life on Our Planet is my witness statement and a vision for the future. It is the story of how we came to make this our greatest mistake, and how, if we act now, we can yet put it right. We share Earth with the living world, the most remarkable life support system imaginable, constructed over billions of years. The planet's stability has wavered just as its biodiversity has declined. The two things are bound together. To restore stability to our planet, therefore, we must restore its biodiversity, the very thing we have removed. It is the only way out of this crisis that we ourselves have created. We must rewild the world. We have one final chance to create the perfect home for ourselves and restore the wonderful world we inherited. All we need is the will to do so." So there are essentially 3 parts to this book. Part 1 is called My Witness Statement, and it's the major parts of David Attenborough's life thus far as it pertains to the globe and the natural world and the wilderness and the environment. It goes through his years, and each decade or so we're given these sets of numbers which detail the world population, amount of carbon in the atmosphere, and remaining wilderness left on the planet during each decade. I've finished part 1 at this point, and the numbers are terrifying and devastating as we go through the decades. In 1937, when David Attenborough was 11 years old, the world population was 2.3 billion, carbon in the atmosphere was at 280 parts per million, and the Earth was still 66% wild. Even if those numbers don't mean anything to you or you don't understand what that means yet, hopefully you understand how much of a problem it is that in 2020, those numbers were now 7.8 billion world population, 415 parts per million carbon in the atmosphere, and 35% wilderness left on Earth. So in less than 100 years, that is 5.5 billion extra people, 135 more parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere, and over 30% less wilderness left on the planet in less than 100 years. And it was a somewhat slow progression of those numbers from like the dawn of time until the 1930s, but there is this absolutely massive exponential growth that happens in those last 80-something years. And the amount of damage that we've done to the planet in such a short period of time is horrifying when you see it quantified like that, and thus you have the basis for the entire book. Part 2, which I'm terrified to read, is called What Lies Ahead, where he is going to detail what is assumed will happen over the next 80 years based on the exponential growth that we've seen happen in the last century. It's going to be fucking bleak. And then part 3 is going to be his hopeful vision for the future and instructions on how to rewild the world. And I'm assuming that he is going to be more hopeful than I feel right now. And I'm gonna warn you right now, I have a lot to say about the first 100 pages of this book, and none of it's positive. I mean, it's all positive about the book. None of it is positive about the Earth and what we've done and all the ways in which human beings are fucking horrifying. And I know that some people will have timed out of this video already. There have been people who have clicked away. I understand that. Please just stick with me. This is not as fun as most of the videos that I make on here, but this is the most important video that I have made thus far. If I can even bring this book to one other person's attention, if I can bring the facts I'm about to tell you to one single person's attention, it will have been worth it. So he opens the book by taking us to Chernobyl, describing the accident at Chernobyl and how it came about thanks to human error, which he then uses to link to the decline of biodiversity on the planet, which is also thanks to human error, many human errors over an extended period of time. He explains that our planet is a place that can only run smoothly and efficiently when the millions of species on the planet are sustaining each other properly. However, of those millions and millions of species, only humans have evolved to be able to single-handedly destroy the entire planet and all of the ecosystems within just a few generations. He also explained that people are creatures of comfort and we don't like to change anything that could take away any of that comfort. And then he ends the by the way, this is all only the introduction. He ends the introduction by saying, "We are all people of Pripyat now. We live our comfortable lives in the shadow of a disaster of our own making. That disaster is being brought about by the very things that allow us to live our comfortable lives, and it is quite natural to carry on this way until there is a convincing reason not to do so and a very good plan for an alternative. That is why I have written this book. The natural world is fading. The evidence is all around. It has happened during my lifetime. I have seen it with my own eyes. It will lead to our destruction. Yet there is still time to switch off the reactor. There is a good alternative. This book is the story of how we came to make this our greatest mistake and how if we act now, we can yet put it right," reflecting what he said on the back of the book. Also, I underlined almost everything from the introduction. So in the first chapter, he goes into the basics of life, namely evolution, and how it took such a specific set of circumstances for life to be able to form at all, and that it's like almost this miracle that it was able to. And while I was reading that part, I just kept hearing Jeff Goldblum's voice in my head from Jurassic Park. Goldblum saying, "Life finds a way," which I realized was hilarious because David Attenborough's brother, Richard Attenborough, he's an actor and he plays Dr. John Hammond in Jurassic Park. I am going to talk science to you, which should be obvious because this is a science-based book, a science-based video now, but I want to talk to you about carbon. And forgive me if I get any little details a little bit wrong. I like to think that I know my shit, but I'm not a scientist. Carbon is something we don't want in our atmosphere beyond a certain level. Pre-humans, our entire earthly ecosystem was so perfectly balanced. Trees on land and phytoplankton in the sea lock away carbon. They suck the carbon up into their roots and down to the bottom of the sea, and by doing that, they are keeping these greenhouse gases out of our atmosphere. Now, when we burn fossil fuels and go through with tactics like mass deforestation, we are not only taking away huge swaths of things that can lock away and store carbon, but we are also releasing that already stored carbon back into the atmosphere. And the ocean is a massively huge player here in this cycle because it becomes this cycle. When there's more carbon in the atmosphere, the ocean becomes more acidic. And when the ocean becomes more acidic, phytoplankton cannot survive as well. So that leads to less carbon being locked away, and it also majorly disrupts the food chain because phytoplankton are the basis of the food chain, which even more majorly fucks up the entire system. I do not think enough people know how important the ocean is to our entire atmosphere, to our entire ecosystem, to our entire Earth. Even if you live in the dead center of a giant continent, if you've never seen the ocean before in your entire life, the ocean is affecting you and it's keeping you safe. I'm gonna read another little paragraph to help you understand how our whole Earth is really just one big system where everything interacts with everything else. So huge herds of grazing animals keep the grasslands rich and productive by fertilizing the soils and stimulating new growth by grazing them. Mangrove swamps and coral reefs along the coast provide nurseries for young fish that grow up and range into open waters and enrich the ocean's ecosystems. A dense, multi-layered belt of rainforest around the equator harnesses the sun's energy and adds moisture and oxygen to the global air currents. And great white expanses of snow and ice at the northern and southern ends of the Earth, the Arctic and the Antarctic, they reflect sunlight back into space, cooling the whole Earth like a gigantic air conditioner. If one of those systems is affected, everything else is affected. So throughout the first part of Life on Our Planet, I mentioned that David Attenborough details parts of his life as it pertains to the environment and the natural world. He is one of the biggest and most important champions of nature because he was one of the very first people to bring nature to the people. He started his career with BBC when it was a very young channel, when television first started to become a big deal, and he knew that people care more about what they can personally see. And he realized how important it was for the general public to witness the beautiful animals and habitats that maybe before they only read about in books or had seen fleeting glimpses of in photos. So with BBC, he basically created the nature documentary. He was flying around the globe when commercial flights started to become more commonplace, in order to give people their very first glimpse at a pangolin or an orangutan. I cannot emphasize enough how important of a figure David Attenborough is to wildlife conservation. Now, I did start to tear up 5 times in the first 100 pages of the book, which I expected. The first time was when he described being in the room at BBC in 1968 when they broadcast a live feed of the Apollo 8 showing the people of Earth the Earth for the first time. 1 billion people watched that live stream. That was 1/3 of the population at the time. Almost 1/3. Can you imagine that? 1 billion people, almost 1/3 of the planet, watching this, one of the most important live streams of all time. I teared up again when he described meeting gorillas in Rwanda with Diane Fossey, who is another one of our great conservationists. She was murdered by poachers in the 80s, unfortunately, but she was to gorillas what Jane Goodall was to chimpanzees. And I felt so emotional to be able to hear about his emotions when he described meeting these gorillas, but also because I've been exactly where he was. In 2019, I got to trek up into the mountains of Rwanda, and I got to see these gorillas in the wild, and I know exactly what he meant when he said,
There is more meaning and mutual understanding in exchanging a glance with a gorilla than any other animal I know. We're so similar.
It was an absolutely unreal experience, and being able to be around them really hit home just how much they truly are like us. I even got sideswiped into a bush by a playful juvenile, and it was in a way that reminded me exactly of how my little brother used to tackle me when we were kids. And I've been a wildlife loving girl my entire life. I was watching Animal Planet as a kid instead of cartoons. I have worked with an anti-poaching unit in South Africa. I've been an animal girl through and through forever. But even I reached a new level of appreciation and love and awe for this wildlife when I got to see these gorillas in person. So I cannot overstate how important it is that David Attenborough spent his entire career showing these creatures and these environments to the general population. Even if you think that you've reached the peak of your animal-loving, wildlife-loving, conservationist soul, watch any of David Attenborough's documentaries, any episode of any Planet Earth, and I promise you there is something for you to learn. Everyone will learn something by watching anything or reading anything from this man. Sorry, I shouldn't cuss about you. I'm sorry. About this wonderful, incredible, beautiful man. He also talked about how humans' exponential growth came with the exponential growth of technology. He says that we've become too good at fishing. Humans started out thousands of years ago hunting a single whale with a harpoon and throwing out single catch nets. And now we have floating factories that can take millions of catch at a time, and it's destroying our oceans. Because with all of that growth in technology, the reproductive ability of fish and whales and sea creatures has stayed the same. By the end of the 20th century, mankind had removed 90% of the large fish from all the oceans of the world. And the large fish are very important. The reproductive potential of a female fish is related to her bulk. Large mothers produce disproportionately more eggs. So by removing all the fish over a certain size, we remove its most effective breeders, and soon populations collapse. In heavily fished areas, there are no longer any big fish. 90% of the large fish in all of the oceans are gone. Also, in the 20th century, men killed 3 million whales. 3 million whales in 100 years. 3 million whales. And whales, especially the huge ones like blue whales, they have a really long gestation period. I think they have like a 1 to 2 year gestation period. So killing 3 million whales in 100 years is obviously not f***ing sustainable. And we know that. Humankind knows that, but they only care about money. Even if it means that these creatures are going to go extinct and therefore there will be no money to get from them further in the future. Everyone just only cares about the here and the now and this generation and like the rest of the generations. So close to 3 million whales killed in the 20th century. Meanwhile, in some areas of the world, whales are responsible for bringing a majority of the nutrients to the surface of the ocean, more than any other factor, which is important because it's part of the circle of fucking life. They bring nutrients to the ocean. Fish eat the nutrients from the top of the ocean, which feeds bigger fish and bigger fish. And then that feeds some whales. And then that feeds people who actually need it. Areas and nations that are sustainably fishing. I'm just mad. I'm just mad. I'm only 100 pages in and I'm so fucking angry, which is what I'm meant to feel. I'm meant to feel angry, and we can't look away from this stuff. It's not a good feeling. It doesn't feel good to feel angry, obviously, but we can't run away from this. We can't close our eyes and pretend it's not happening. If I choose not to read the rest of this book because I'm too angry, that doesn't mean shit. This is still happening whether or not I'm reading about it. We cannot close our eyes to the reality of the situation that we have created. Also, from the time he was born in 1926 to 2020, in that time, 2/3 of the world's population of orangutans have been killed off. Humankind always reaches for more and will not stop. He says somewhere in the book that it's actually still relatively easy to see an orangutan if you go to Southeast Asia because so many of the remaining orangutans are in zoos or wildlife rescues or specialized areas where there are anti-poaching units and all that kind of stuff. That's why it's so easy to see an orangutan, because they're all kept in these spaces because we've killed all of them that are in the wild. This planet was not made for the kind of growth that humans yearn for, and for so long we didn't have the science to know how badly we were damaging it, but now we do. Now we do have the science, we're just still not doing enough about it because of money. Also, a lot of people still don't realize how bad things have gotten because of shifting baseline syndrome. Each generation defines the normal by what it experiences. We judge what the sea can provide by the fish populations we know today, not knowing what those populations once were. We expect less and less from the ocean because we have never known for ourselves what riches it once provided and what it could again. Shifting baseline syndrome. If anyone else here watching is in their 30s or older, I bet we can all remember that in our childhood, at least mine, I saw more bugs. I heard more frogs. Growing up, I'd go out to the backyard at dusk and I'd hear frogs and crickets and bugs. And he talks about insect populations a little bit in here, and there are so many less bugs in the world than there were 30 years ago even. And you might be thinking to yourself, who cares? They're bugs. I don't like bugs. I hate bugs. It doesn't matter what the you hate. It doesn't matter if you hate bugs. Bugs are important. Every single thing in our earthly ecosystem is important and makes up some kind of food chain or some type of ecological importance. It's a big bad deal that we hear less bugs now than 30 years ago. And he was talking about shifting baseline syndrome because with every year, not only do we have more mouths to feed, but there are fewer fish to be caught. Records and reports, even from just beyond living memory back in the 19th century and the start of the 20th, describe an ocean that we wouldn't recognize. Old photographs show people thigh deep in salmon. In Scotland, fishermen would haul in a line of 400 hooks and find flatfish on almost all of them. Our not so distant ancestors fished with nothing more complex than hooks and nets of cotton. We now struggle to catch something edible with technology that would take their breath away. 100 years ago, the ocean was a crazy bountiful place, but we don't always see that as factual because that's not what we see now. We believe what we see, what is put in front of us, and what is put in front of us is an ocean with vastly less fish, especially big fish. Another reason why it's so important that David Attenborough has put these things in front of our faces. By helping to create all of these nature documentaries, all of these films about wildlife and about habitats, he's letting us see things firsthand. And now these nature documentaries will be around another 100 years from now. So people with shifting baseline syndrome in the year 2100, they'll be able to see on film what the ocean was like now, compared to whatever hellhole they're living through 100 years from now. This is gonna be a long ass video. Also, we've had 5 major extinctions throughout history that we know of, and each of them has involved a radical change in carbon in the atmosphere. The Permian extinction was 252 million years ago, and it was caused by catastrophic volcanic activity. Basically, this insane volcanic system covered Siberia with 2 million square kilometers of lava, and it the earth so badly that 96% of all marine species died out because it acidified the ocean so badly. Because the carbon from the lava, from the volcanic activity, spewed up into the fucking sky, rained down into the oceans, acidified the oceans, killed off all the creatures. And that sounds intense, but that was 1,000,000 years of volcanic activity. 1,000,000 years of insane volcanic activity poisoned the ocean. And we are about to reach that point in 200 years or less. 1 million years of volcanic activity. We're about to poison the ocean at the same level in less than 200 goddamn years. We are disgusting. We're a plague. We are a plague. And that's actually, I think, a David Attenborough quote. Humans are a plague on this world. And I'm coming to the end of where I've read to so far. I'm just gonna read you some more fun facts. We have reduced 30% of fish stocks to critical levels. Almost all the large oceanic fish have been removed, like I mentioned before. We have lost about half of the world's shallow water corals, and major bleachings are occurring almost every year. We've reduced the extent of mangroves and seagrass beds by more than 30%. Mangroves are very, very important to the ecosystems they're a part of. They lock in so much fucking carbon, but they also filter salt out of the water. They're crazy trees. Mangroves are crazy. They're trees that can live in salt water. They're so cool. And we're killing them. Plastic is invading oceanic food chains, and over 90% of seabirds have plastic fragments in their stomachs. Giant tortoises that live on islands that humans are not allowed to go to. They're on this wildlife reserve. Some of the tortoises are over 100 years old. They now have to clamber over plastic bottles, oil cans, buckets, nylon nets, and rubber. No beach on the planet is free of our waste. Humans aren't even allowed to go there except for very specialized circumstances. People aren't allowed to go there, and still the beach is covered in plastic. The fifth and final time that I cried while reading the first 100 pages of this book, and this was a full cry. I kind of lost it at this point. It's when I read this on page 100. 96% of the mass of all the mammals on Earth is made up of our human bodies and those of the animals that we raise to eat. Cows, pigs, sheep, etc. The remainder, every single wild mammal from mice to elephants to whales, accounts for just 4%. 4% of all of the mammals on Earth are wild. The other 96% is fucking humans and their cows and their pigs and their domesticated farm animals. 4% are wild. And if that's not the most depressing thing that you've heard all day, I don't know what to do with you. If it wasn't clear to you before, hopefully it's clear now. We are not living right. We're not treating the earth right. We've stumbled into this beautiful gift of a planet, this huge ecosystem that we're supposed to be a loving, supportive piece of, and we run across it like we fucking own it. When the reality is that we just happen to be the species that developed this type of brain. We are the only species on Earth who could create this level of destruction. So that was a lot of talking. I'm only 100 pages in. I've got like 160 more to go. And next up is what the next 100 years are gonna look like. So wish me luck. I'll see you on the other side. Hi, I finished the book. It's the same day. I just powered through the rest of the book, and then I came up here to the bedroom to catch what little light there is left in the day. And what I'm gonna say now is also not fun. So I thought I'd put eggs of it. I thought I'd put two of my animals in the background as like a soothing balm for what it is I'm about to say for the last 160 pages of the book. Egg and Rosie are gonna be our therapy animals this evening. So the rest of the book, that was horrifying and then hopeful, but I don't think that I hold the same kind of hope for humanity that David Attenborough does. I don't think I believe in humankind at the level that he does. So the prognosis for the next 80 years is in fact fucking bleak. And it reaffirms my choice not to have children. Not to knock anyone who has children or wants to have children, but it's clear that the earth needs some people to choose not to procreate. So I am here to do my duty. First of all, the Arctic is set to have its first ice-free summer by the 2030s. That's 4 years away. Stop making the noises. The Arctic having ice is important for a multitude of reasons. Polar bears need it to survive and to hunt, which you might already know. Algae grows on the underside of ice, which you might not know. That algae is the base of the Arctic food chain, and it is important at every level. Arctic ice also helps cool our planet by reflecting the sun. It reflects the sun's rays back to space. It basically acts as a giant air conditioning unit for the planet, which I think I mentioned before. So without that ice, the Earth loses its ability to cool itself. By the 2050s, some people predict that 90% of the world's coral reefs will have been destroyed, and that's thanks to ocean acidification, mostly thanks to the carbon in the atmosphere. If everything goes on based on the predictions that the scientists have made, there will be huge swaths of areas that will be uninhabitable due to the heat, and some coastal cities will be uninhabitable because there's supposed to be a 3-foot rise in sea level. I mean, it's bleak, guys. And I'm not going to apologize for fear-mongering because I'm not fear-mongering. This is reality. Again, you can't close your eyes and pretend that it's not happening. If not to you specifically, it'll happen to your kids, to your grandkids. This is the future of our planet. If shit stays the same way with the exponential growth that we have been experiencing and creating for the past X number of years. And then we go into section 3, which is Attenborough explaining how we can help rewild the world, aka getting us back to a place where our ecosystem is in line and where we're all finally working at sustaining each other, not just humankind, but all species, aka caring about something other than ourselves and our money. He goes over a few key points, mainly moving beyond growth, switching to clean energy, rewilding the seas, taking up less space, rewilding the land, planning for peak human, and achieving more balanced lives. Moving beyond growth is what I accidentally touched on earlier. The fact that humankind always strives for more needs to stop. Generally, people want to be first, be best, go farther, and it's just not sustainable anymore. We need to learn to be happy with where we're at. We've achieved so much as a species. We don't need to push further into habitats. We don't need to fish more. And now I'm going to talk to the billionaires in case there are any billionaires watching this video right now. 50% of humanity's impact on the living world is attributable to the richest 16% of the human population. So any billionaires that might be watching this, use your money for good. Save the world. If you could funnel just 10% of your annual income into environmental causes, we could all be in a much better place a lot sooner. I can't even imagine a world in which nations aren't striving for perpetual growth. It does seem like everyone needs to be number one in every single way except for where it really counts. Health, happiness, sustainability. David Attenborough also talks more about climate change and green energy, and I am convinced that people who don't believe in climate change are just not educated enough on the topic. Maybe they're uneducated about the process of life and the history of life on the planet. They don't understand the ways in which everything is linked to everything else in the natural world, which is why it's so important for all of our education systems to get up there. That's where we want to be number one. We should all strive to be number one in the educational sector. The thing that really gets me is that for enough real change to happen, nations around the entire world need to come together in a way that we never have before. And I just don't know if I can see that happening. We're all too busy wasting time hating people and fighting each other when we're all f***ed in the end anyways. People wasting their time being fucking xenophobic and starting wars with other countries, not understanding that at the base of it we're all the fucking same and we're all gonna be the exact same way. Sure, if you're rich, you'll be better off, but being the top dog on a wasted, dying planet is not really worth much. There are some examples he's given about nations and areas that are making incredible strides. It's not all negative. There's an area called Cabo Pulmo that was overfished so heavily that their ocean became a desert, and to save it, they wound up setting aside a vast majority of their area of the sea as a no fishing zone, and it was hard and it was uncomfortable during the wait, but after 15 years the marine life had increased to 400%. And then the fishermen moved forward fishing sustainably, and they had a tourism boom because people wanted to come see the beautiful reefs. So the entire Cabo Pulmo economy was the better for it. We have a third therapy animal here for us. Oh, hi, say hi. Hi. Meanwhile, the most overfished part of the oceans are mainly thanks to China, the EU, the USA, South Korea, and Japan, all nations that can afford to end this practice of overfishing. David Attenborough ended his book with a part called Our Greatest Opportunity, in which he paints a beautiful picture of a possible future in which we all come together and harness our powers for the greater good. This hinges on the seemingly impossible task of humans not being selfish. And I have a really hard time believing in humanity's ability to do anything that's best for the whole of the earth, rather than what's in their very limited self-interest. But if my hero believes in it, Who am I to disagree? I'm gonna leave you here with a direct quote from the end of the book. Humans have an ability, perhaps unique among the living creatures on the planet, to imagine a future and work towards achieving it. We can yet make amends, manage our impact, change the direction of our development, and once again become a species in harmony with nature. All we require is the will. The next few decades represent a final opportunity to build a stable home for ourselves and restore the rich, healthy, and wonderful world that we inherited from our distant ancestors. Our future on the planet, the only place as far as we know where life of any kind exists, is at stake. This book is a call to action. I know that a lot of people have the mindset of, I'm just one person, what can I do? But David Attenborough is just one person, and look at all that he has been able to do. Each person matters in this fight, not just for what you can do personally, but in the way that you vote. I have never shied away from talking about politics on this channel. None of this should be surprising to you. The future of the world depends, at least in part, on how you vote. If you are voting for people who come into office and want to do things like oil drilling, deep ocean trawling, mass deforestation, if you vote those people into office, those things will be happening. The fate of the world is so much more important than any one individual. So please use your voice, please be smart, please vote smart. Read books by conservationists, watch nature documentaries, spread the good word of the good man. Care. Just care. It's so cool to care. And now I'm gonna go rewatch Planet Earth. I was gonna watch the documentary A Life on Our Planet that goes along with this book, but honestly, I need to soothe my brain because I'm just so angry. So I'm gonna rewatch part of Planet Earth. I watched this plenty of times as a kid, and I'm excited for a little bit of nostalgia and a whole lot of calming Attenborough voice. Thank you for being here with me as I traversed a pretty devastating book. I know this video probably wasn't as fun as some of my other content on here might be, but if you have stayed until the end, really truly thank you for being here. I urge you to read this book, or read Ocean, or watch Ocean, or watch A Life on Our Planet, or watch any of his numerous bountiful nature documentaries. Watch a documentary in his honor this week. He's spent the last 80 years advocating for a better world for all of us, and he's truly one of the greatest people who's ever graced this planet. The very least we could do is honor him with a documentary watch for his 100th birthday. Once again, the link to donate to his cause will be linked in the description box. Feel free to leave this video on mute and a loop, and I will be doubling whatever money I make from the video and donating to World Land Trust myself. And that's really it. If you can hear me, if you can read the subtitles, thank you even more for being here. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you're having a great May. I love you. Bye.
Oh my god.
Egg, egg, egg. Egg! Our entire earthly f***ing hell. Mangrove swamps and coral reefs aren't striving per f***ing hell. If you can hear me, if you can see me. What?